There's a new study out that shows that people who smoke marijuana actually do not end up having brain damage, as some people claim. Now, this new study from researchers at the University of Colorado Boulder, which is, of course, it's legal in Colorado, they found that marijuana is actually far less damaging to the brain than alcohol is. Very interesting. Now, the study, which was published in the journal Addiction, also suggests that weed use does not alter the structure of a person's brain. So, this is absolutely fascinating. Now, this study was done by Ken Hutchinson. At least he was a co-author of this study. And he was talking to Medical News Today, and he thought, okay, look, there's all these stereotypes about people losing brain cells and getting, foggy memory and things like that after smoking marijuana. Again, stereotypes, right? So he's like, I want to look at the long-term effect, okay? I want to look at what effect smoking marijuana has on a person's brain, because, look, we don't have conclusive answers to those questions. And he gives a couple of studies. He says, when you look at the studies going back years, you'll see that one study will report marijuana use is related to a reduction in the volume of the hippocampus. The next study then comes around, and then they say that marijuana use is related to changes in the cerebellum. The point is that there's no consistency across all these studies in terms of the actual brain structures. So now that's important, because we've actually, in America, put a moratorium on the study, since it is a Schedule I drug federally. It means that we can't actually use it for a lot of research, at least in the federal level. So if we can't look into how it impacts people's brains, then we can't necessarily come back with actual information on what it does, on the effects of it. Now, as I said, he references some studies that were done, but it's important to note that some studies are often funded by, you want to make a guess here, anti-marijuana groups, and of course, the alcohol lobby, which, again, is really important to this, because alcohol is one of the biggest losers in places where marijuana has been legalized. In fact, they're losing a lot of sales as people are switching over to cannabis, which is actually, again, much less harmful. Now, speaking of alcohol, as I said before, for the study, the researchers wanted to see the relationship between alcohol and marijuana use and the volume of gray and white matter in a person's brain. Both gray and white matter are very important for a healthy and functional brain. Now, it was found that among those who drank alcohol, this is adults, and to a lesser extent teens, had a reduction in gray matter volume. Now, the study found that white matter was affected in adults, but not teenagers who drank. These effects were especially seen in adults with a history of drinking for years. So this is all according to Medical News Today. So look, I don't think it's a surprise that drinking is not good for your brain, especially if you have a drinking habit. That makes all the sense in the world, right? So now they looked at marijuana users. Now, these are people that are defined as those who smoked in the past 30 days. In marijuana users, there was no relationship between smoking marijuana and the structure of their brain. No changes. No changes in gray matter, no changes in white matter. It stayed the same. Interesting. So, look, that means adults, and this is important, adults who use marijuana are actually better off when it comes to their brain than people who drink. Now, that doesn't mean that there's no negative effects of cannabis. Well, I think, like everything, moderation is key. So, for example, you can't go out there, you just can't sit there and chain smoke joints all day. No, that's going to be bad for you, right? That's not going to end up well. At the very least, you're not going to be very productive, and you're going to be very, very hungry. So, no, everything in moderation, of course, right? And also, for the most part, you want to keep that stuff away from minors. Now, that is unless, of course, you have like cannabis oils that are good for things like seizures and stuff like that. Well, that's a different story. I'm talking more recreational, right? And so people who drink recreationally and people who smoke recreationally, there's a difference between those people's brains. And of course, the people who drink more obviously have more issues with their brains, more changes with their brains than people who smoke marijuana. So, again, this kind of flies in the face of marijuana being absolutely horrible and dangerous. Basically shows that it's nothing more than fear-mongering propaganda. And look, we've known that. We've known that since the Schaefer memo, right? Schaefer memo, Nixon threw it out. He's like, no. You understand, I want to use marijuana to go after my political enemies. Who are my political enemies? Black people, Latinos, and liberals. People who generally smoke marijuana. Well, I'm going to go after them. I'm going to call them degenerates. We're going to launch this war on drugs. And I'm going to get after my political enemies. This is back when progressives were actually strong. And Nixon's like, we got to take the legs out from under them. I know, let's launch a war on drugs. And it's actually been incredibly effective. So, but here we have more evidence that marijuana is actually not as bad as alcohol and not as bad as people say. So, legalize it already. Legalize it, regulate it, tax it, man. We don't need another war on drugs, Jeff Sessions. We're not interested in your war on drugs. Okay? Take your reefer madness and go back to the 50s, man. We've had enough of your goddamn drug war. No, it's time to legalize it. It's time to regulate it. It's time to tax it. It's time that we end this bullshit war on drugs. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.